Okay, so we got our first serious game, serious submission, because this was an actual tournament-rated game. So far, we've just, in our viewer game analysis series, looked at games from LeChess and Chess.com, but this is from a FIDE-rated game in Germany, where the time control was game in 90 for the first 40 moves, plus 30 minutes for the rest of the game, with a 30-second increment, I assume, the entire time. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe there's the first time control, you don't have the increment. It makes a difference later for what I'm going to say. So keep this in mind. If it's a 30-second increment the entire time, but I don't think it was based off of how the email read. So without further ado, let's jump right in. And with white, we have a 1700 FIDE-rated player who submitted the game to us. And with black, we have an almost 2000 rated player. So let's jump right in. And we got ourselves a Grunfeld, always fun. And an interesting sideline in the Grunfeld, knight a4. And I'd looked at this a little bit before when I was trying to play the Grunfeld, but I found out that, honestly, I feel like I'm getting kind of old for new things, especially very difficult Grunfeld theory. So I'll just stick with my current systems and try to get good with those, because I feel that I really haven't in the past number of years. But knight a4, interesting stuff. And black in turn plays a secondary move that is also very interesting with e5. I think this is a speculative move, and as we'll see, black got a pretty terrible position quite quickly. If you're going to play things like the Budapest Gambit, play the Budapest to start with. If you're going to play the Grunfeld, do like a specialist. In this case, we're going to look at a game from Peter Spidler, one of the all-time greats of the Grunfeld, and countless video series and books. He's a boss with it. Listen to him. He plays bishop g7, the Mr. Natural move, and this is an example game from Chess 24 that Spidler played against Jeffrey Zhang, and I liked it because it was just smooth, it was clean, it was simple. And I'll end the analysis there, as black has equality already and the slightly better pawn structure. So equal but dynamic. I like those types of things. e5 was played in the game, and our viewer took up the gauntlet. Way to go. And then already this is starting to get weird with this knight e3. Takes, check. All that made sense. You get your piece back, and the tripled pawns exist. So, okay, development. And then this is already a critical moment, because if you've never seen this position before, you can be taken by surprise. But I think this is a pretty terrible opening choice for black from the perspective of the time controls. Like, if this was a game in 60 game, I would be an advocate of playing the system 60 minutes or faster, because you can speculate with a legitimate FIDE time control game with 90 minutes and then the 30 minutes after 40 moves and 30-second increment. With the 30-second increment, you should never run out of time ever, like ever. Unless you are dead lost anyway, you should never run out of time. I say this as someone who has learned how to play with a 5-second delay and has lasted for the better part of 200 moves with 1 second left on my clock with the 5-second delay. No. 30-second increment is an eternity. So here, take your time and figure out what you would do with white and why, because this is the first critical moment of the game. All right, hopefully you paused your video. And in the game, the normal move, knight f3, was played. But I I felt that we had better. I started looking at b3, first of all, just to say, what is your queen doing? Protect the a pawn again. My rook can easily come into the game. And after queen b5, I liked bishop takes c6, which is a counterintuitive move. But on knight f3, we're holding on to our extra pawn. And say he's not letting us castle. I don't care, king f2. Where my rooks are very cleanly coming to the c and d file. We have a pawn in hand. We have the imbalance with the knight. I mean, if the queens come off the board, the game is essentially over. Let me verify with my boss here. What say you, Engine? Engine says this position is +2 for white. Okay, so I feel good about my evaluation there. This is what I do. All right, so knight f3 was played in the game, and I mean this doesn't botch anything, but when you're up material trade down, you can basically already force a much better ending. So castle, rook e8, and here is another critical moment, because I think this might have been a case of the jitters by our viewer, who is the lower rated player in this game. And when you have this position that you've probably never even seen before, and your opponent's higher rated, you kind of trust them a little bit, and you'll hesitate. But here, this is a question of objectivity. I look at this position, I go, okay, who's completely developed? We got, all right, we're castled, we got our knight and bishop working, we got a rook. Okay, rooks are connected. We're completely developed, and even though we've got triple pawns, it's still a pawn in hand, and we can get something for it. This is already a moment that we go, look at black. All right, queen's kind of offsides. Knight and rook are working together. I like those. This bishop's not doing anything, and the rook's not in the game. So we've got to move here to set the tempo and start attacking. And you should. Tactics flow from a superior position. You have the superior position. You should be looking to go after the opponent right now. So here in the game, queen c3 was played. And this is just, okay, I'm giving you time to develop. I'm giving you time to pressure things. No, we give the pressure here. Knight g5. You say, okay, I'm hitting the f-pawn. I'm unleashing. The pieces are in harmony. And if knight takes e5, bishop d5, everybody's working. You try to stop me, you will not stop me. This cannot be stopped. Takes on f7, takes on e5, where this is devastation for black in the position. And the game is essentially already over. Let me check with my boss again. Let me confer. And the boss says +5 at a glance. So boss is saying it's good. This would have been a crushing feel-good victory out of the opening, but then it probably never would have been submitted. So let's get back to it. Queen c3. I think this was an error of psychology of competition, not necessarily calculation, because typically, and I believe our viewer is younger. I remember when I was a teen, my calculation was easily, if I had a competition with my teenage self and calculation only, I would have put myself under the table. My old self now, because I could calculate back in the day. And you should be able to see knight g5 and bishop d5. If not, this is you need to study tactics more, you need to study long-term thinking more, because when I see this position, my first thought is I'm completely developed, therefore I should attack, and the first thing I consider is knight g5, and I'm going to try to impose my will on the position and make it work. And I'm going to find the follow-up after the natural knight takes e5. So, something to think about, key moment there. All right, queen c3, queen a6, bothers our e-pawn, and we're not too worried about it. b4 was played. And I don't really know what that move does. I mean, it's a move, but again, knight g5. because here we've got queen takes c7, and we've got pretty straightforward tricks here. So b4 was played in the game. Queen b6, okay, b1, reasonable. Tickle on him, and white's playing defense. Again, knight g5. We got e6. We got all the fun in the world. Knight e4 with the dirty. You got to use the dirty when you got it at your disposal. And I think this knight g5 move, it wasn't considered, or we're just in a certain defensive psychological mindset, and that can cost you in these types of games. b5. All right. Knight g5. That is. We got takes. And here, it's easy to miss this one because we do the automatic recapture, but e6 is dirty because on f takes, queen f6 with the big threat of going to f7. And the best he can do to stop that is to give up the knight, where we're threatening the rook and we're threatening queen takes h7. So e6 is another dirty tactical move. And notice the theme so far in the game. White had a commanding position because black speculated and tactics. I do the same thing in my game, do not feel bad at all, but I want these viewer game analysis to be objective and instructive, and I'm doing this video the same way I do game analysis with my students. No offense should ever be taken when you're missing a move, because it's like that. I'll hear students beat themselves up after the game and be like, "Oh my God, I'm terrible at chess." No, and this is a theme from psychology back in my days at university, where you have different levels of negativity with statements. And when you say, "I suck at something," that's a state of permanence, a permanent, pervasive statement. Whereas if you said, "I played a bad game," that's temporary. That was just a terrible game. I mean, some people even go the route of, "Well, my opponent got lucky." No, I hate that type of mentality, because both people are playing. Both people are imposing their will in the position. But have that mindset that I'm not trying to be rude or aggressive. And it is a question. I didn't have a conversation with our viewer, but I would think that we had a kind of a defensive mindset out of the opening. Maybe there was a little bit of intimidation by the higher rated opponent who had black. A couple of different factors to try to take into account. And then the tactics. Maybe you're not considering tactics because of the opponent or the situation. Don't know. But I find all these types of things interesting. This is how I work with my personal students when I'm doing game analysis with them when we're discussing the game. So I'm just giving you the full Tillis experience, if you will. Okay, sorry. I did this as a teacher as well. Big tangents. Okay, so king takes g2, automatic move. Rook f8, queen c4. We're finally getting some pressure, but I liked it earlier a lot better. Knight f5. And here, again, that's like, I want to make my attack work. I'm going to make my attack work. I'm going to open you up. e6. Shut the queen down from coming to the defense. And after she takes, queen h4, where how are you going to stop me from taking on h7? That's all you got? All right, yeah, I'll take this all day long. So time and time again throughout this game, I don't think we consider the tactical resource, or we're missing key in-between moves. Work on calculation, work on confidence over the board, believe in your evaluation of the position. I'd really love to ask, how did you process this position when looking at it? Because here, knight f5 was played, and it's like, oh crap, he's threatening e3. It's believe in the opponent. Rook takes f5 and e6, that's the key. Believe in me. Believe it. All right, queen f4. f6, makes sense. Rook f3, again, defense. We want aggressive defense. You want to defend the pawn, defend it that way. Knight h4. All right. Let's get dirty. You go queen e7. That's one way to go. Queen takes, rook takes, and we've got a winning rook and pawn in game there. Active defense. You're going to defend, counterattack. Judo style defense. Rook f3, queen c4, and we're coming close to the end of the game. A note that was in the email that was sent was at move 25, White had 10 minutes left in the position. And this is something that is stated on a regular basis to me by my students, is I was in time trouble. And time trouble is different for everyone, but to me, time trouble is like a minute on the clock with this type of position, because there's not that much here, not that much to really worry about or consider, because the king's safe. It's not a tactical slugfest. We got one knight each and some heavies. We should be wanting to play here. So right here, knight e4 was played, but knight e6 hits the c-pawn and the rook. And if rook f7, e4, and we're getting the win. And if rook e8 to hit the knight, we're taking. And then e4 again with the pin. And again, another forcing continuation, and knight e6. Tactics. So knight e4 hits the queen, and after queen e7, check, knight c5, b6, and black offered a draw. To his credit, I mean, black dodged a major bullet, as we've seen in almost every other move in this game. He was tactically lost. So this is a great result for black as the higher-rated player playing a speculative opening with e5 and getting away with it. White, on the other hand, it's a question of a few different things. Like, one, if you didn't feel you were winning here, I'm okay with you taking the draw. But even here, let me confer with my boss again. Boss says +2. So boss says you're winning. Boss says keep playing. Knight a6, hit the c-pawn. You know, even though your rooks are kind of silly playing defense, we're okay. Knight a6. His king's open in the long term. I think White's having more fun. So, time trouble, 10 minutes. If you play blitz, 10 minutes is not an issue. If you play 1 minute, it's not an issue. And I'll share a personal story. We have in the States, if you are the scholastic or junior champion of your state, you get to go represent your state in the Tournament of Champions. So when I was a junior in high school in 2005, I was the highest rated player in the junior category in my home state of Alabama. And I was playing, it was a game in 30, which is absolutely horrendous for a scholastic championship. It's ridiculous to have game in 30 to decide champions of anything other than rapid. But they want to do a tournament in a day and have lopsided results, so that makes sense. So game in 30, give everybody a chance type time controls. I was playing on an old school clock, which didn't have a delay, which was a mistake in and of itself. And I remember the key moment. I had a winning position with White, and I had 7 seconds on my clock. My opponent had 3, and anxiety hit me, and I flagged in a winning position. I could have just played any move with the position that we had on the board, 7 seconds versus 3. I'm sorry, I'm making today I'm making moves that are blunders that are closer to my clock hand just to flag my opponent, because there's no delay, no increment. But I lose the game, and I lose my opportunity to take that trip to Denker. And I didn't have a coach at the time, and as training, what I personally did to make sure it would never happen again, I played 10,000 1-minute games, 10,000, to make sure I would never freeze again. And that was in 2005. Fast forward to 2011 at my hometown tournament at the Dothan Open. And when you do proper active learning training, this can be the result. I was playing against International Master Emery Tate, and I found out that he was coming to the tournament. We had pretty decent prizes. This is a hometown tournament, got to be the hometown hero. So I call him out before the tournament. I remember being at Tuesday Night Chess Club, and one of our mutual friends was like, "Oh, Tate's coming." And I was just being sarcastic and was like, "Oh, tell him, I'm ready for him." And I could hear him on the phone. He was interesting personality guy. He's like, "Who does he think he is?" It's a real fun banter situation. And we play each other in round 2 because there wasn't that many players in the tournament. And it was a game in 60 with a 5-second delay. And we get to a queen and pawn ending where I had 5 pawns and he had 6. The position was locked up. He's clearly better. I had 1 second on my clock versus his 12 minutes. And I was in the zone, I wasn't budging, I wasn't flagging, and I knew the only way he could ever make progress was to sack material, which would speculate, and I could win. So I was calculating on his time, and I was ready. Anytime he made a move, we went. And no score sheet. I didn't ask for a count from the tournament director, which you need to do in that situation. So the game went on and on and on and on and on. It was easily a 350 move plus game because of so many moves that took place. But I eventually ran him out of time, where I had 1 second versus his 12 minutes. And I say that happened because of my 10,000 1-minute game training. A lot of trainers go, "Oh, 1-minute chess is really bad for you no matter what." And I think it's a bad perspective, honestly. Like, if you have a weakness with playing quickly, or you get nervous, or say I was in time trouble, we'll fix the time trouble issue. Because look at great players like Alexander Grishuk. Grishuk gets in time trouble in almost every game that he plays, but he's been World Blitz champion. His blitz skills are on point, and he has faith in his abilities. Some players play better when they don't have time to think about it because their first reaction is trained so well. Grishuk is a great example of one of those players that uses all this time and then is completely fine when he gets to blitz mode. Be like Grishuk. So hopefully the personal story helps him there with, if you feel like you're in time trouble with 10 minutes, work on it. Especially if there was a 30-second increment this entire game, there's no excuse, honestly, because 30 seconds is an eternity per move. But if this was flat time, 10 minutes is still a long time at move 28. This is a relatively simple position. I think you should play on, but every player has a different threshold for their risk and how they're feeling at the time. I talked about in either a series that's coming up or in a previous video about draw offers, and went off on a big tangent on that about how I feel about draws. So be looking for that, but always open to have conversations with these types of things. Hopefully my experience helps you, but at the end of the day, I'm just a base level USCF national master. What do I know? All right, hopefully you're enjoying the series. Thank you for your contributions.